So we are just over 2 weeks now, at the time I'm recording this at least, until Switch 2 finally gets released, and the drama has definitely not shown any signs of stopping as of yet.
Let's go!
Hey everyone, it's me, Mario Adventure Gamer, and yeah, I figured it was about time I wanted to get my own thoughts about the new console and everything that's releasing. The Nintendo Switch 2. Yeah, I'm not really confident about this new generation of Nintendo with everything that's been going on, and might as well get into as to why, but this is just not Nintendo's era, I'm gonna be honest. With the price increase being like way more than it was in 2017 when the original Switch released, and all the price increases not just for the console but for the games, the accessories, and the whole thing that's going on in America that I'm sure not a lot of people are enjoying right now, but it doesn't feel like it's going to get any better. So the Switch 2 had a Direct, obviously everyone is aware of this, and it had a first sneak peek back in January. And the discourse has gotten worse and worse, but maybe we'll have to see what happens with the Switch 2, like, when it finally releases. But as for right now, though, I'm not sure it's going to reach that goal that Nintendo is predicting it will, that being 15 million units sold. And it's definitely quite a reach, because considering how well the Switch release window was, and everyone just scrambling to get one back then, I wouldn't be surprised. But I know some of my friends online are definitely going to get the Switch because they have the money for it, and I thankfully looked at my money pot and have enough for not just the console but also Mario Kart World. However, I think getting games is going to be a lot harder until I actually get a job, because, you know, games are getting more expensive, and this has definitely made me change my mind on some things, but not entirely just yet, about wanting to be a game designer, because I grew up with games, so I would definitely want to grow up making games as well. But all this drama's definitely caused that to be on pause, even though I'm currently near the end of my college year for my games course right now. I still am not sure if this is for me, if everything's gonna become worse and worse and worse. I don't want to be here too long discussing this, but all the stuff that's been going on with Switch 2 has been crazy, like how apparently some people are not even going to be able to afford Switch 2, depending on where you live, considering the crazy number that the prices are for different countries. Like 700 to 800 I think is in Canada, whereas for me in the UK it's just 396 quid specifically according to the Nintendo website, and 75 quid for Mario Kart World, along with most likely 66 being the new standard, according to what Donkey Kong Bonanza has shown anyway. And all the stuff about how Nintendo can record what you're saying and how you're using the camera. Some people are against this because they think it makes Nintendo look very stalkerish, I believe. But other people, like my dad, who I've talked to about this before, has also said maybe it's supposed to help in case you know who, as in really, really bad people that shouldn't be near other, you know, younger fans of Nintendo being around them. That can definitely be one plus to why they have to be so, you know, strict and monitor everyone. However, the fact that you can't mod your Switch anymore, despite the fact outside of a few mods I think I'd seen, I didn't really do much on my Wii in the late 2010s. It doesn't affect me that much when it comes to mods for Nintendo Switch 2, but the fact that everyone else is feeling very mixed about this sort of debate, how Nintendo is becoming more, this is no longer your console, because if you dare to mod anything or try to do anything that we don't like, such as like copying games and reselling them, or even what other people in the late Switch era, like with releases like Mario & Luigi Brothership, I believe, somehow someone managed to get a hold of that early because of like some sort of emulation, and now Nintendo's going to go after emulation because of how it means you're pirating their games, which obviously pirating is bad, but Nintendo hasn't really given us the best excuse to not do that with how strict they are with releasing games ever since the Wii U and 3DS eShops closed and everything. So this could be the era when Nintendo has finally lost their identity, maybe? That's what I believe, at least, because Nintendo originally used to be the better option. They were cheaper than their competition, and therefore more affordable, and wanted to appeal to families after, you know, the competition with Sega sort of died. Well, in terms of actual console wars at least. I'm sure the rivalry still exists somewhere, but as of right now at least, Nintendo is definitely still confident with the whole console creation and everything. And I just don't know how to feel about any of this aside from confusion and sort of hope. I want to feel a sort of hope that Nintendo can somehow turn this around for them, because if the Nintendo Switch 2 flops because of the outrageous price increase, not to mention everything that's happening, as I said, in America, which I don't think as of yet has affected me in the UK, however, that could be subject to change in the future, depending on what happens at least, but Nintendo is seriously in some hot water right now, and I just don't know how they're going to be able to pull this off with everything going on. I don't know how long I want to talk about this, but I'll just talk about how much I feel like is worth me talking about that hasn't been talked about, because you've seen all those other people making videos on this, and I'm no different, but I just wanted to say I might want to get the Switch 2, whether that be pre-ordering or day one or later on in the future. I just don't know if boycotting Nintendo is even going to work right now, at least. It could in the future when they finally see, oh, I think we might have priced this a bit too much. But they're definitely trying their hardest to validate this new price tag for everything, and it honestly makes me concerned about the future of gaming. Not just for people like me who want to become game designers and want to show off their craft with how everything just keeps increasing in price to, you know, sell to customers and everything, but also for the fact that it could even get to a point where it can't even be a fun hobby anymore, or even something that gets children into gaming, because of the fact that parents are definitely going to be a lot stricter with how, you know, pricey games are. I mean, heck, my parents were definitely very strict with how game prices were, I believe, with, you know, when it came to the 60 quid, 50 quid sort of price range that the Switch era had. But now that I'm a fully grown adult, I can sort of choose if I want to get games or not. And I'm definitely trying to put that mindset into action now that the Switch 2 has definitely increased a lot of things. The mouse controls, if I hadn't known before about the Super Nintendo doing that, would have been a pretty cool sort of, you know, gimmick. However, I don't know if many other people are going to be that interested in it, because, what is it, like, that new Dragon Drive game that involves, like, you know, characters in wheelchairs playing basketball looks quite good, though I don't know if I plan to guess it, because it probably feels like an ARM situation where I don't really feel like it would interest me that much to get it, or even if I'd actually play it for a long time compared to all the Mario games I've had. But hey, I've been able to branch out and play stuff like Shantae and Ace Attorney in recent years, thanks to the Nintendo Switch. So who knows, that could be subject to change in the future. As for right now though, I probably will just stick to just Switch 1 games for streaming, and when I eventually decide to start streaming Switch 2 games, that could depend. If anything, I'd probably just want to keep it as a collector's item and just keep it in the box because of how expensive it is. Makes me even less willing to take it outside and stuff compared to my original Switch. And yeah, that thing's definitely showing signs of age now, with how it's been like almost a decade since it was released. But wanting to speak about the Direct itself and the games, Mario Kart World, despite the fact I've still been on a love-hate relationship of the new voice change for Mario and everything, I know this is coming a bit late because this has been a debate since like 2023, and now here I am, almost 2 years later, bringing it up again, even though it's the first time on my channel I brought it up, but, well, for a video at least. But aside from the dread I felt that my childhood is definitely dead at this point, and might make a video about that in the future or not, I'm not entirely sure. I definitely hope to try and get a clear head when it comes to the Switch 2, because this is a new era, and aside from GameCube Online, which, yes, that was honestly shocking that they decided to bring this back, but not for the Switch 1, so there's definitely going to be a few disappointed people. But the fact that GameCube is coming, and Mario Sunshine, after Mario 3D All-Stars was discontinued, finally gets to be played again, just like Mario 64. Now we just have to wait and see if they release Wii onto the Switch 2 Online as well. But back to Mario Kart. The open world seems very interesting, considering it's something that's not actually been done, I believe, for the series. If anything, I originally thought the next Mario Kart game was going to have an adventure mode of sorts, and if anything, I think an overworld gameplay sort of Mario Kart could have definitely worked well with that. I mean, we have Diddy Kong Racing that had a story mode slash like adventure type mode, which, while not really open world per se and more had levels to them, definitely could have seen this being the case for Mario Kart World if it did work out. However, I can't say for sure yet if it will be able to, you know, prove to us if this new Mario Kart is worth it, with how 2 of the tracks from what I've seen are actually being repeated for 2 of the cups, and how they're switching it up between Nitro and Retro tracks, how they're mixing it up, putting Nitro tracks in cups where you would see Retro tracks and vice versa. But it's definitely an interesting take, that's for sure. The costumes definitely look cool, even if people are saying that it's gonna mess up the character select menu and everything. And how split screen is still 30 frames, and even the fact that iconic characters such as Diddy Kong and Kamek, or Kamek, supposedly in the UK, didn't get to return for this game, but we don't know in terms of Diddy Kong yet, at least, because he got a new design and everything recently, so he might show up later on, and maybe he didn't show up in the earlier trailers because they were waiting to reveal this new look for him for the Switch 2. Then again, we may not know for sure, but the fact that they got wacky with this roster was crazy. I mean, we haven't seen the Cataquack since Mario Kart Wii, the game I first played as a Mario fan. It's not the first game I've played entirely, according to my mum at least. That was Wii Fit, if you're interested to know, but the first Mario game being Mario Kart Wii, and I haven't seen those enemies since that game, is definitely insane to think about. For 2008. As for other games, like Kirby Air Riders, that definitely seems like something I may want to get, but on the other hand, I'm not entirely sure because I haven't played the original, and I don't know if I'd want to wait until the original eventually releases on GameCube NSO just to see how it would feel between the two. But considering we also don't know the exact release date outside of this year, for all we know it could be delayed, it probably might get released around the same time they choose to put Air Riders on NSO, who knows. There were a bunch of other stuff like Switch 2 editions of original Switch 1 games that I found quite bizarre, considering the fact that Mario Party Jamboree isn't technically getting DLC per se, because if it was, it would be on the original Switch. But I feel like we can technically consider this a Wii U to Switch situation, like with, say, Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, or, in a sense, maybe the Captain Toad Treasure Tracker Switch port that eventually got DLC. That one's a bit of a stretch in my opinion, but I'm thinking of this more as like the, you know, how Wii U content got extra Switch content when it was being ported over and, you know, sort of gave it a second chance at you know, attention and everything. And in terms of, like, Donkey Kong Bonanza of all things, like, that being a 3D Donkey Kong game, I definitely want to get, because we still haven't got Donkey Kong 64 on the NSO yet, which I would really want to play first, considering that was the first ever true 3D Donkey Kong game before this one. But I definitely want to see how the breakable terrain will work, and this little purple odd rock companion I know is going to probably be my favourite companion because, you know, it's purple. What else can I say? But other than that, there was also Game Chat. So Game Chat was also something that was recently announced shortly after the Mario Kart World trailer and everything, and I'm gonna be honest, it does kind of look like Nintendo Discord, which isn't a hot take. Literally everyone is thinking the same thing. I mean, hell, I actually thought it was what Game Chat was going to be when it was first shown on the Switch 2 Direct. I was just like, wait, is this Nintendo Discord? Because it definitely felt like that was going to be the case. When it was, like, you know, showing off the microphone, having no noise cancellation, and it's definitely going to spice up gameplay if you don't use Discord or something, but Nintendo's definitely going to have to keep an eye out when people are using Game Chat if they want to keep people safe for, like, for everyone to enjoy. It is certainly a risky move, but I wouldn't be surprised if they suddenly decided to discontinue it, similar to how Miiverse shortly got discontinued after 2017, I believe, for the Wii U and 3DS. And after that, there was definitely a lot of third-party games that I'm certainly surprised they managed to get into this Direct. Like, I'm not sure if I'm going to play these games, but it is definitely nice that the option is there for people who want to play those games, and honestly, it's going to be quite hard figuring out if I'd even want to play some of these when they come to Switch 2 or not. I know I'm definitely not wanting to get rid of my Switch 1. You crazy? There's still going to be a few games there that can't be playable on Switch 2, from what we've also been told, so yeah, stuff like WarioWare Move It, I believe, is going to have that hand recognition thing that was barely ever used from Nintendo games, so games like that are definitely going to still need a Switch 1 to play on, so I'm definitely not getting rid of that anytime soon. But then, other games I'd definitely be interested to see how they play on Switch 2 is, like, stuff such as Super Mario Party, the original one, not Jamboree, considering how everyone's not a big fan of the singular Joy-Con gameplay, but considering there's bigger SL and SR buttons, I would definitely be interested to see how exactly they would introduce that, per se. And back to GameCube Online quickly, I definitely want to see the GameCube Mario parties, if anything. I know they're probably not going to for a while, but I really want to play those games online with friends, because who wouldn't? They obviously want to, you know, show off how GameCube can actually play stuff in 16:9, and, you know, the different aspect ratio, and lots of other cool features I bet we can try out, similar to how the N64 one did. I don't know if it'll do the same thing as the NES, SNES, and Game Boy, where you can pretty much rewind the gameplay in case you mess up, but we'll just have to wait and see when it releases. There was certainly a lot of stuff to the Switch 2 that was definitely interesting. The hype was definitely there when people saw the Switch, and the Switch 2 is definitely proving to be even more hype. However, all this other stuff going on has definitely soured it for other people, or heck, some people are considering this to be the last console they may ever buy from Nintendo. Some are just straight up not going to, you know, put in the effort to buy it because they don't feel like it's actually worth the price increase. Not just for the console, even if some people don't mind the console being so expensive, because it's literally the console. It's more the games that me and other people are definitely concerned about, because while I can definitely afford it right now, I can't say it could be the same for the future outside of, you know, Christmas and birthday money. So for other people who are wanting to get a Switch 2 or have already gotten the Switch 2 via pre-orders as of the time of this recording, then honestly, I just hope you enjoy it, because for all we know, the Switch 2 could be Nintendo's biggest failure since the Wii U, who knows. But boycotting them, I don't exactly think is going to work. All this drop the price thing that's been happening ever since the price reveal, not even from the Direct, by the way, they didn't even bother to show the price during the Direct. They were confident with the Switch 1, but the Switch 2, not so much for some reason. And as for the bundle that they mentioned, I don't know if I want the bundle, because I'm pretty much a physical for life. Pretty much every game I want to get, if it's physical, I will instantly want to get that, because physical over digital, and besides, digital takes up more space, supposedly, compared to physical. So that's definitely another reason I want to hold back on it, because of something like that. And yeah, Switch 2 is definitely going to have a rocky history if this is the case. But I don't want to drag on this video for too long, so hopefully you guys will be hyped for the Switch 2 if you actually, you know, think it's worth the price increase. For anyone else who doesn't feel it's worth, please let me know in the comments if Nintendo, if YouTube doesn't mark this for kids, because I definitely hope it doesn't. However, I'm definitely hoping the Switch 2, you know, can recover from this, because, I mean, it looks so cool. Sure, it's just a Switch again, and they're not adding that much different, but game share is definitely something I want to try out with some friends, with, like, games that wouldn't normally support online play, like Luigi's Mansion 3 Story Mode, or heck, even Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, considering that was one of the games that was included in Game Share. And while, yes, I may be a bit skeptical on how Switch 2 is going to turn out in terms of other games, because we still have yet to see 3D Mario, and even then I'm still unsure if I'm even ready for that. We'll get it eventually, though, whether that be in a June Direct, or heck, even a July Direct if they choose to delay it a bit. But as for right now, though, I think we should definitely prepare for the best outcomes or the worst outcomes, whatever happens with Switch 2. And I definitely want to like the console. It's just I don't know. Game chat doesn't feel like something I'm going to use that much, but it's nice that they give you the option to use it without having to pay for an online subscription to, you know, actually try it out and everything to see if it's worth the money. So there's definitely a nice plus there, but then we get to Welcome Tour, which is apparently a tech demo from what I've seen from other people's videos talking about the Switch 2. and it's going to cost $10 in the US, but I don't actually know how much it's going to cost in the UK. However, people are saying it pretty much tells you how the Switch 2 works and even tells you some other details. But I'm gonna be honest, for the people who are thinking it's willing to, you know, pay for, other people are just going to, like, look for videos online about it, probably, and then they probably won't even need to pay for it. Or heck, they'll probably just treat it like the Switch 1 and just, you know, just figure it out on their own, like how I did. Because I know everyone's treating Welcome to like a Switch, like Nintendo Wii Sports situation, where they had to, Nintendo of America literally had to, when Reggie Fils-Aimé, who was still in charge at the time, had to convince them to make it a free tech demo for them to, you know, be able to sell it with the Wii and everything, to, you know, teach everyone the motion controls and stuff. I could definitely see that being more likely a game that would have to be paid for compared to this Welcome Tour thing, because at least Wii Sports, to my personal opinion, had charm, with, you know, the Miis being introduced and everything. Sure, there wasn't much to the game, but it definitely didn't feel like a game they had to charge you that much for. I don't want to say that I'm on board with the Switch 2 basically making a free, what should be a free tech demo paid, but it's not like I'm going to play it anyway, so it's not really my problem, per se. However, I could definitely see why people would definitely not be on board with having to pay something like that. But Switch 2, it's a console, even though it's probably not going to be yours, because if you mod it, then it's gonna get bricked. And yeah, I think that's probably all I want to talk about in terms of the Switch 2. There's probably some other things I might touch up on in the future, depending on what happens, but for right now, though, I'm just gonna stick with Switch 1, and if I do decide to finally pre-order it, or heck, buy it day one, I'll just have to wait and see on that. But for right now, at least, I think we should all just prepare ourselves for whatever happens, and yeah, I think that's all I wanted to talk about for Switch 2 stuff. And honestly, if you want to let me know how you feel about the new console, just comment on the video if it'll actually, you know, let you. I really hope YouTube Kids doesn't mark this as for kids and everything, because that would not be something that I would want, even if there's not that much swearing I've been doing in this video. So yeah, I don't know. I just can't fathom the reality we're in, you know? Switch 2 definitely feels like a console that could do well, but if it gets changed a bit, at the very least. But anyway, that's all I feel like I need. That's pretty much all I want to talk about this. I didn't really see a reason to script this video anyway, so that's why you're just seeing background footage of the Direct and everything. This was meant to be a quick video. I didn't want to get that much into the topic, though depending on how long the video is after I finish recording this audio could depend on what people think about that. But that's pretty much all for the Switch 2 debacle I can, you know, touch upon and stuff. But that's gonna be it. Feel free to like and subscribe to help me reach my goal that you can see on screen, and yeah, I guess I'll talk to you guys next time whenever I decide to finally upload another video, or whenever that be streaming, because oh boy, the year has been busy for me with college. But yeah, that's gonna be it for now, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!